25 years of people-centered and impactful journalism. Hello and thank you for joining us from wherever you are. We are coming to you live from our studios in Kokomlemle on digital address GA0992539. Our top stories this hour. Ghana Police Service says it is being compelled to use more force to enforce lockdown rules as people refuse to comply, especially during the Easter season. You hear from the service as it evaluates Operation COVID safety. Coronavirus in 10 out of Ghana's 16 regions as new cases are recorded in the Western and Volta regions and more cases, especially in Greater Accra. Coming up, we take a look at how the Ghana's COVID-19 journey so far has been as we go live to areas according to recording fresh cases. Same dates, completely different times. That's what Easter has been for almost the entire world. This afternoon, we take you to some beaches where security personnel are lined up to ensure strict compliance of lockdown measures as people defy the rules, especially during the Easter season. Join us on DSTV channel 421, GoTV 144 and on YouTube where we stream live. Join us with your opinions on 054 0109 009. Daniel Daze, let's settle for the details. And police in Accra say they've begun arrests and prosecutions of people flouting the lockdown rules. While compliance remains high, the police are worried that some individuals are disregarding the rules governing the restrictions aimed at containing a fast-spreading virus. We'll explore these in a bit, but first, Ghana's infections have now spread to 10 out of the 16 regions of the country. On March 12, 2020, Health Minister Kwaku Agyeman-Manu broke news of the nation's first cases of the coronavirus. 32 days on, the case count stands at 566. The following news desk report captures the highlights after a month of increased testing and rising cases.
Fellow Ghanaians, good evening. The Minister of Health has confirmed 2 cases of COVID-19.
Health Minister Kwaku Agyeman-Manu, flanked by Director of Public Health Dr. Bedi Sarkodie and Information Minister Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah. He breaks the troubling news to the millions of Ghanaians listening and watching across the country with rapt attention.
The cases were confirmed on the 12th of March, that was today, 2019.
This left many worried, with some international schools where students had come into contact with cases shutting down. As Ghana's case count rose to 6, President Akufo-Addo announced stringent measures that affected schools and public gatherings.
All public gatherings, including conferences, workshops, funerals, festivals, political rallies, sporting
The cases continued to rise, with more stringent measures announced each time legislation was passed to give the president the power to institute some of these directives. That did not contain the situation much, as imported cases soon translated into community transmission. People with no travel history had begun testing positive for the virus. By March 24, Ghana had recorded 52 cases. 100 more cases were recorded 6 days later. On April 1, the health minister placed the count at 195. It rose to 204 on April 2, 287 on April 6, and 313 on April 8. 4 days later, the case count now stands at 566.
Now, we'll go to Joy News' head of health desk, Fred Smith, for some analysis later in the bulletin. But before that, let's take you to the Volta region, where the Regional Security Council has shut down major markets there as part of efforts to contain the spread of COVID-19. The region has recorded 9 cases, leaving residents worried. Volta Regional Minister Dr. Archibald Lecha has been speaking on the measures the Security Council is rolling out to contain the spread of the virus on News Desk.
These decisions are taken, the assemblies have received advice from the Regional Public Health Emergency Management Committee to find a way of decongesting the market. And we suggested that they should abolish market days and open the markets on daily basis so that we don't have overcrowding on the traditional market days. So that has been done in many of our assemblies. But when it became, we heard of the cases in Lower Manya, Krobo, that is very close to the North Town district. Then we decided to close the Joapo market. We also decided to close the Kisifri market, the Germany, and the markets, the markets that are close to North Town. Then South Town also decided to close the Solokope market.
Okay.
Titus have also decided to do same in Aplau. And then yesterday I was informed by Central Town DC that they were also going to close the market. The whole market today is whole market day. But what has been done in whole is that we provided security. There are 20 policemen and 20 soldiers that are in the market. So there are no traders in the whole market today. It's supposed to be the traditional market day, but the chiefs with the queen mothers and all of us agree that today should be a cleanup in the market. So we have security presence in the market. So I'm surprised to hear that when it came to what is happening in Kumasi now, even though markets have been closed and the traders have come. I will speak to the DC. I'm not aware of this, and find out what consultations were done and what security arrangements were put in place to make sure that whatever they decided was enforced. I'm here to speak to the DC to find out what happened. You are just hearing it on your network, but at our level, at the regional level, we give direction to the 18 municipal and district assemblies that we have. And they are doing so well in carrying out the directives.
So from what you tell us, about 5 markets have closed down already, and a lot of restructuring in some other markets. Probably will have some other markets also closing down in the course of the week. As head of security for the region, would you recommend any form of a lockdown or some restrictions in the immediate term so you can nip this in the bud, prevent further spread of the disease?
Well, we're going to have an emergency meeting any minute from now, and then we will take the joint decision as the regional public health emergency management committee to see what recommendations we can make to government. But as of now, I am of the opinion that the measures that we put in place are okay for now. People are calling for more drastic measures. People are also advocating the closure of all the markets along the border lake, which we're looking at. But when we considered where the EC regional cases were, they are so close to us here around the Sojamine and the Lower Manya Kobo that we think that the measures that we are taking around North Town, South Dine should be enough for now. But when it becomes necessary, and we hear of cases, let's say in the Afram Plains or the Afram Plains area, then we may have to consider movement of people from our Afram Plains to our markets along the border lake.
Now, Fred Kwame Asare reports for us from the Volta region. He joins us on the line. Fred, thanks for joining us. Give us a snapshot of what has been happening in the Volta region's markets today.
Excuse me. Like the Volta regional minister rightly said, a team of police and then military officers were deployed to the whole central market to ensure that traders and residents comply with the directive that there shouldn't be a market day today. You know who usually observes market days with 5 days interval. They have traditional market days after every 5 days. But then, following the recording of cases in the country, 2 weeks ago, the whole municipal assembly gave a directive that they shouldn't observe traditional market days in the whole municipality. So this directive, I should say, was flouted. 4 or 3 markets after the directive was issued, residents still converged at the market and then went about their usual trading activity. So to ensure that they comply with the directive, a joint military and then police team was deployed this morning to the whole central market and the whole central business district area where they would want traders to comply with the directive. I should say that buyers were mounted at about 3 entry points to the whole central business district to ensure that traders don't come and then engage in their trading activities. Also, officials from the Zoom Lion and then some other officials from the Municipal Assembly engaged in some cleanup exercise this morning to just make sure the surroundings of the market are clean.
Now, Fred, I'm looking at footage from the whole central markets that you just sent in. Deserted stalls, abandoned market. How long did the security officials plan on keeping this up?
Well, I spoke to the MCE. He mentioned that throughout today, the security officials would be there to ensure that traders don't return even after the cleanup exercise is done to engage in trading activities. But then he also mentioned that tomorrow the place would be, or the market would be open for trading activities, but just that they wouldn't allow people to congest in the market to flout the social distancing directive by the president.
Now, it's only in the Takoradi metropolis, Fred, that we realized that alternative space was given for traders and it was properly demarcated to enable social distancing. Are the authorities in Ho thinking of something like this, or they're simply asking the traders to come back and socially distance themselves at their own discretion?
Well, listening to the FCE, I don't think at the moment they are thinking of any measure of that sort. But then what he told me was that maybe officials from the assembly would be in the market to ensure that they don't congest too much in the market, and then if possible, they go by the social distancing directive. But then to relocate the market to a different place where they would maybe demarcate places and ensure that they comply with the social distancing directive, for that, at the moment, the MCE or the assembly have not stated anything on that. And
these will be security officials from the assembly at the markets tomorrow, trying to ensure that they observe social distancing.
Exactly. The minister also mentioned that they would put together, or they have put together a task force that would be going around town to ensure that taxi drivers, traders in the market, and then what have you, comply with this directive of social distancing, and then also the directive by the Transport Ministry that we should not pick more than, for a taxi, they shouldn't pick more than 3 passengers. That is 1 at the front and 2 at the back. And then for other vehicles, they should just comply with the directive from the Transport Ministry. So I should say that starting tomorrow, there will be a task force in town, especially the market centers, to ensure that traders comply with this social distancing directive to curb the spread of coronavirus. We'll
do this again tomorrow, Fred, when the measures are actually being implemented, so we can understand how it works. Thank you so much. Let's go just north of the Volta region, Oti region, where our man Peter Senu has also been observing a similar process going on. Peter, thanks for joining us. Now, in the first place, what's the story from the markets at Oti?
Well, as we speak, there hasn't been any confirmed case in the region yet, and so we are just moving about. Residents in the region are just moving about their normal duties, but the social distancing bit of it in the marketplaces is what is worrying, because you can still see people almost crowded during market days. Not so much of social distancing happening in the region here yet.
Peter, is there any indication from authorities that they plan to do something about this absence for the rule of social distancing?
Yes, of course, they have been, authorities, the various MDCs in the region have been moving around doing what they call risk communication using the mobile vans and community radio stations. But this one, we can only bring it down to individual acceptance, or so to say, of the protocol of social distancing. Individuals must take this upon themselves not to not get crowded at places, especially market days.
Now, you have been speaking to these traders and you live among these people, Peter. Is there any concern for the COVID-19 pandemic's threat in the Volta region and in the country as a whole?
Yeah, this is the Oti region, though the feeling yesterday among residents is that of nervousness, I should say. We hear relatives who are not residents in the region calling their families to ask where they are and that they shouldn't go out and that the disease is almost near, and so they should be very cautious about their movement.
Now, of course, Peter, I was asking about the Volta region because it's a neighboring region, and since there are 9 cases there, I was wondering if people in the Oti region are concerned about their safety, considering how the Volta region is just a few meters below.
Yes, of course, they are concerned about their safety, since it is just close by. From the region, you see that the closest town to the Volta region you see is Hohwe. Hohwe shares close boundary with the Oti region.
So, Peter, just before we go to the word from authorities of the region and of the various districts is that they are doing risk communication.
Come again, please.
I simply wanted an emphasis on that point, that authorities have chosen a path of risk communication or basically education.
Yes, the risk communication is what they tell you, that do not go out, stay in your house so that we can break the chain of infection.
Right. So I just wanted to get that clarity, Peter. Thank you very much. Now, still in the Oti region, DCE for Nkwanta North, Mr. Jackson Jakai says measures have been put in place to reduce the numbers in some of the markets in that part of the country. Now, especially at the Jackson Passat markets, following reports the traders are not adhering to social distancing protocols. Let's hear Mr. Jakai now.
So you are moving about half of the market women to a new site.
Definitely.
How many? Do you have the figures?
In fact, this Passat market is a very huge market. In fact, there's people from the north come, the south, and everywhere, almost in Accra. So, in fact, I will not be able to be sincere with you.
But have you communicated this to the market women? And what is the plan to ensure that?
The announcement was done last week, and this week it will be done, so that we'll know next week. But we are doing a lot of begging and putting in some chips to ensure that we do that by next 3 weeks. So that is the preparation need to be done. Rather than looking at the numbers, the pressure is so much. And everybody, you can't stop anybody from coming to buy whatever you want to do. But I think with the education that has gone around, everybody is now know that it is bestowed on everybody, each and every one of us, to cooperate to ensure that the social distancing principle is observed.
I'm not
so for
sure.
the numbers, I'll not be able to tell you offhand.
I'm not sure if just relocating half of the market women will necessarily result in a respect for the protocols. What exactly are you doing? I mean, reducing the number is good, but in terms of human relation and touch, have you put in place, structures that will ensure that they are spaced out properly and that they do not, come into very close contact with each other?
That's what I'm telling you. Education is key. I think the first education we did, was the first announcement we did, and we have this information van that is in the market. We've also called the stakeholders like Market Queen Women, Market Queens, Yam Sellers Association leaders, and all those stakeholders we have in the market. And we have spoken to the leadership. However, we have a team, a monitoring team that will be in the market this week to ensure that we instill discipline and ensure that we not force, but just to educate them and let them know that it's the responsibility of everybody to ensure that whatever you are doing, you don't get very close to your neighbor.
Now, meanwhile, one of the markets supposed to have been closed is bustling with lots of business activities. This morning, Ivy Setoji has been engaging some traders. Let's listen.
I come from Adam. When I come to the market, I see that the market is so busy. But it's not so busy like last week when we came. And the market is not so lively like last market day. Today when we came, they said the market will be closed down. So we don't know. They didn't tell us that the market will be closed down. Today when we came, they said the garri is 10 cedis. And when we are going to sell it, how much can we sell it? And when we are selling 12 or 15, police said, no, we shouldn't sell it like that. So we pray to you to talk to the market women or the staff tunnel people so that they will do the thing for us, which is why I go and sell it. My name is Grace. I come from Accra. Yes, please. It's going to affect because I didn't know that today the market will be shut down. So it will affect me. Yes, I will bring to the government so that it will give us another week so that we'll come and announce to the people today that next week the market will be shut down so that we'll come and buy our food because the market is shut down. Yes. And we know, but we will talk to the people so that we'll do that. We want you to talk to the people so that we do that. Announcement to go so that we do that.
Also, there was no informed, as I said earlier, that there was going to be a closure of the market today. That is where they are. We have a young man here. What can you tell us?
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Economic Secretary. Actually, I was in this community is a community. And then people around here, all areas, depend on this market to earn their daily bread. For that matter, closure of this market as every other time right now means the citizens are going to go hungry at the end. So I'm suggesting this and Easter Monday as well. And usually on Easter Mondays, the market exists within from 6 to 12, everything is done here. So if the press and then the other authorities could give us a piece of opportunity to move on to at least acquire some food stuff to stay indoors to use that, that would be great. Yeah, we actually know of this, but the situation is compelling us to at least we can stop in there just because of the business. We have to get something eaten whilst we are indoors there. So at least from now to 12 o'clock now for us to disperse from this place.
So they are asking for more time so that they can get their food stuff and other things before the market is finally closed. So for now, we are actually looking for the DC for the area, Thomas Wilson, to speak with so that he told us more about the situation of this market. The crowd here is so huge.
Setoji there. Now, Deputy Director in charge of Public Health in the Volta region, Dr. Kwesi Jokoto, has been giving us a breakdown of the first 9 cases recorded.
We have 9 positive cases in the Volta region. 6 of them were people who were quarantined after they tried to reach the borders of the country after they were closed. They were apprehended and then quarantined. So out of the 56 people who were quarantined, 6 of them turned out positive. We had one returnee coming into Ho, came into Ho 12 days ago and started showing symptoms about 3 days ago. Immediately the client was sent into isolation. The sample was taken to Noguchi and that turned out positive. The client is stable now, he's doing well. And like I mentioned, is in isolation. So there are 2 other cases in Hohoi. Both of them have returned from Accra. And in all, one is a 22-year-old pregnant woman who came back specifically to deliver here in the Volta region. Delivered, started after about a day, presented with fever and running nose and cough, which are symptoms of COVID-19. So met the case definition, samples were taken, and that turned out to be positive as well. The last case also returned from Accra and then called for help after he started experiencing those symptoms. We went through the routine as usual and took the sample and sent to Noguchi as well, and that also turned out positive. So that is a brief breakdown of the 9 cases that we have in the Volta region.
Very interesting details there, but what is the status of PPEs for your medical team in the region and the general state of preparedness? Should there be a lockdown?
Thank you. So I would want to thank all who have so far supported and supporting all the facilities with PPEs, especially Ghana Health Service and the Ministry of health. At present, we have PPE in all the treatment centers or case management and isolation centers. But we know that going forward, because the consumption rate is high, we expect that if we expect to get more deliveries. I know that by the end of this week or middle of this week, we are supposed to get more deliveries from the Ghana Health Service. But individuals who can support should also continue to support, because the PPEs are still very much in high demand. Lockdown has not been spoken about in the Volta region, but it's something that people are expecting, because cases are being recorded, especially if we get into the situation where we record community transmission, then that will be something that the National EOC would have to consider.
Joy News Channel, my name is Daniel Dazi. When we come back, we go to the western and eastern regions to find out the latest on their case counts and more. Stay with us. We'll be back. Right, now let's head over to the eastern region where Kofi Siao is standing by with the latest from there. Kofi, we know there were some agitations over the weekend for a lockdown of the region. What's the latest?
Well, Daniel, the regional minister, Eric Kwachidafo, indicated over the weekend that they're going to meet, and that will be a collaboration between the Regional Coordinating Council and the Ghana Health Service, as well as security officials in the region, to decide on whether to, lock down the entire region or lock down only the Krobo enclave. And when I talk about the Krobo enclave, I mean Yellow Krobo district, Upper Menya Krobo district, Lower Menya Krobo municipality, and the Siojaman district. So the meeting was supposed to take place today, as the regional minister indicated, but I was at the Regional Coordinating Council today where they were supposed to meet, but found nobody there, probably because of the Easter Monday, so they didn't meet. I've been trying to reach authorities for why the meeting didn't come on, but I've not been able to reach them. So I'm sure by tomorrow, when government offices open, the meeting will take place for them to take a decision and forward their recommendation to national security for government to take a final decision on whether to lock the entire region or to lock the Krobo enclave.
Why the Krobo enclave?
Well, because according to the regional minister, when he spoke to a radio station in the region, he said that the pandemic is high in that area. And all the samples that they've taken and the results that have come out, you find out that out of the 32 cases, hello?
You're on air.
Out of the 32 cases that they have in the region, 31 is from the Lower Menya Krobo municipality. And this is only with the Afcon Construction Limited, the company that is building the rail from Akosombo to Accra.
And these employees of Afcon Construction Limited, do they have travel experience? Are they Ghanaians? What more do we know about them?
Well, the results so far, the positive cases that they've tested so far, the 31 with the company, out of the 31, 30 of them are Indians. They are expatriates from India. So they were brought all the way from India to Ghana to come and work. They are not resident or Ghanaian residents. And the only person, the other one is also a Ghanaian. The other one is the only Ghanaian among the 32 that has been recorded in the company.
Kofi, is this company still operating?
Right from the first case, when the first person was tested positive, the Regional Security Council collaborated with the Municipal Security Council and decided that they shut their operations. So from the time, that is the 30th of March, up until now, they've not been working.
Now, Kofi, I am curious. How are the people of the Eastern region taking this news?
Well, there is anxiety among residents there, especially those in the Krobo enclave. When you visit Kpong right now, when you visit a place like Accra and the other places where the company has their camp, all that they say is that they want the Ghana Health Service and the government of Ghana to take this issue serious and perhaps decide to conduct a mass testing in the area, because these are people that they know, they trade with them, they buy things from them, they have their girlfriends, they have so many people that they interact with. So it's a very tricky situation. They would want government to take it serious.
I'll take you back to Afcon Construction, Kofi, because I want to know if the people who worked in the company have been quarantined.
Come again?
Has anyone been placed under mandatory quarantine since these cases were discovered?
That was when the first case broke. The Ghana Health Service decided that they quarantine all the workers. So in all, there were 244. That is for Camp A, which is located at Kpong. But for Camp B and Camp C, which is located in the Sojaman district, I'm told by the Ghana Health Service that they started working on them at that place. So for Camp A, I can for sure tell you that the workers at that place who did have contact with the first Indian who was tested positive have all been quarantined.
Right, and these 31 new cases that came, because Eastern Regional has 32 cases, these 31 new cases that came, were they out of this 244 who were quarantined, or they were from the second camp?
Well, from the report or the statement from the Ghana Health Service, they took samples of 244 workers of Afcon.
Okay.
So out of the 244, when they tested as at Saturday, when the result of 100 samples came, they had 28 confirming positive. So they were still waiting for the rest of the results until when they issued another statement that 32, the number has decreased from 28 to 32. So I'm sure before they brought out the first statement, they might have conducted some tests and tested and made sure that some of the results also came in.
Right, but finally, we don't know if all the 244 test results have come.
No, they are not already.
Okay, thank you very much, Kofi.
The Ghana Health Service says.
Thank you very much, Kofi. Very interesting details coming out of the Eastern region, but let's go across the country to the Western region, also recording its first case over the weekend. And Natalia Kwanzaa joins us with updates on the ground. Now, in the first place, Natalia, you were telling us earlier today that Easter Monday has been a very different day in Takoradi this weekend. Do I have Natalia on the line?
Hello. Hello.
Right, Natalia, can you hear me?
Yes, I can now.
Great. So you were telling us earlier that Easter Monday has been a very different day in Takoradi today. Tell us more.
Yes, so today being Easter Monday, it's a day that you see a lot of people out. You see a lot of revelers, especially because of a popular festival known as Yesu Asori and the Secondary Metropolis. But today the whole city is quiet. I've been through the city, the metropolis, major cities, and it looks like it's more of a lockdown. I've been through all the major beaches, and then every beach we know is popular in Takoradi is locked down. South African Beach, Yana, Alan Beach, it's all locked down. The only people you can see there is security service, that of the military, the police, marine police, and the Navy patrolling the place. And then all popular pubs and then restaurants in Takoradi has also been locked down in the city.
Interesting. There's a very booming tourism industry in Takoradi built around these festivals. There's a lot of revenue to be made around these times. What are these businessmen saying?
Yes, though these people now feel bad that they can't make this revenue, but they feel it's all in a good cause. Because looking at the way Takoradi is, if let's say they should allow these people out there, so we cannot tell from the looks of people who has COVID-19 or not. So if they should allow them there, they would get their money all right. These are what the things they told me. They would get their money all right, but at the end of the day, how are they going to curtail or prevent the spread of the disease? So for them, on one side, they feel bad of what is happening. On the other side, they are happy because it is all in goodwill. It is all to save the region and then the metropolis.
Right. Natalia, before we let you go, what more do we know about this first case that has been recorded in the Western region?
Yes, so from a press release from the regional minister, Dr. Pablo Mensa, he says that the third person is a Chinese national. He's one of 6 Chinese and 32 of Ghanaian working at Coastal Quarry, located in Anto in the Shamar district. And then, so he came to Ghana on the 21st of March, and he was in self-isolation for 14 days. He didn't show any sign of COVID-19, but he tested positive, and he has been quarantined. And so the rest of the workers, the medical teams are doing contact tracing at their workplace at Shamar.
Now, this industrial enclave at Shamar is not very close to the populace, the main populace, is it?
No, it's not close to the populace.
Has that place been locked down? Is that place under quarantine of sorts now?
I cannot say vividly that it has been locked down, but what I know for fact is that a medical team from the regional health directorate have been there to do contact tracing. Right.
Natalia, thank you very much for joining us with those details. She reports for us from the Western region, giving us the details as that part of the country reports its very first case. Let's come back to the capital and look at the situation here in Accra today. Police enforcing the lockdown have now increased checkpoints on the road, questioning people moving in and out of the main central business districts. Now, we also have our reporters at the malls and the beaches monitoring the situation there. PSA Nana Safo was at the West Hills Mall. Here's what he found.
I got to the office around 9:30 and it was like, what is happening? The whole compound was like empty. I ran from ShopRite to Game, which are the anchors, and none of them were even open at 9 o'clock. Traditionally, you have them by 9 ready and then trading. But this time around, Game open, ShopRite open around 9:30 and Game almost 10 o'clock. And you walk around, you don't see anybody around. The other thing we're also implementing because of the lockdown and the COVID-19 that we've asked the security men, you make sure people come, they buy, and then they leave. We don't want people to be crowded here. But bottom line is that it is really and really affected operations and business at the mall. A typical Easter Monday at the mall is like a fanfare. It's like family outing. It's like people coming together to have a feel of the mall. People coming all the way, even from central region to the mall. But today, nothing is happening at the mall. It is our prayer that this COVID-19 will be over, then we can all come back to normal life. That is our prayer. By way of revenue, I'm sure we'll walk around and you see the number of tenants trading now. You know, the government was specific. The essential services who can trade. So we walk around and you see you have ShopRite Game. Out of 6 food court tenants, you have just 1.
Now, the Ghana Police Service says it's remanded a number of people who flouted the lockdown rules announced by the government. The restrictions are meant to cut the spread of the virus in Ghana. Speaking on Joy FM Super Morning Show with myself this morning, Director of Operations at the Accra Region Police, ACP Kwesi Fori, said personnel will ensure a strict compliance of the current partial lockdown. According to the top police officer, these persons were arrested in 14 divisions of the Accra Region Command.
We're on the street, in our communities, on the roads, along the beaches, everywhere, at the peril of our lives, to make sure that we inject sanity into the system. So one thing is now we're going to have 2 important tools: arrest and prosecution.
Were they arrested?
No, what I mean is now we're using arrest and prosecution are one of our vital tools to ensure due enforcement and compliance of this order.
But were they arrested, this couple?
As I said, between Dakuma and Nyamiche area.
Were they arrested?
Yeah, they were arrested. Yesterday we arrested them together with, their supporters, and they were all questioned and granted bail, but they will be put before court.
Okay, yes. When?
Soonest.
ACP Kwesi Fori also warned his men will be on the lookout for drinking spot operators, beach owners and other small businesses who are secretly doing business and exposing the health of their customers to the disease, especially during the Easter festivities.
It's possible, to go the compliance. When we're looking at move, if you look at the geography, about 10 million community, that festivity and turning it into a positivity in the past. But this time, should go and so forth. No, the military are there, the police are also there.
Are you planning on making any arrests, especially of these beach owners, regarding some of these videos that we've already seen?
Oh yes, people will be questioned. The regional police commander has asked, commanders with jurisdiction covering the beaches to ensure that any infraction of that nature, organizers should be questioned, and where applicable, they should be sent to court.
So those organizers, some of them are accused.
They're good guests. Play yesterday for have to go in the.
Now, elsewhere in the world, the death toll has overwhelmed hospitals and morgues in some parts of South America. Ecuador is one of such countries where bodies have been abandoned on the streets or left to decay in houses, cargo trailers and parking lots. The stench emanating from the exposed corpses stinks like bile in the throat, and flocks of vultures wheel above the city, waiting their chance to feed on human carrion. Cemeteries are far beyond their capacities, so some of the dead are now buried in unmarked graves in outlying fields. So for those who doubt effects of not adhering to the lockdown directives, watch this and appreciate the need to stay at home.
The queue outside Guayaquil's cemetery is a grim warning. Cesar Alvarez lost his mother a week ago to COVID-19. Now he simply wants to bury her.
El olor humano no tiene cultura, no tiene. Así vivimos nosotros los ecuatorianos, nadie nos representa, estamos solos.
Most families like Cesar had to keep their loved ones' bodies at home for several days after authorities became overwhelmed by the number of dead. To protect against the smell in this tropical city, coffins are wrapped in plastic for a final farewell. While authorities claim fewer than 200 deaths from coronavirus in the whole of Ecuador, the city's morgue was overflowing.
Esta es la realidad.
The mayor has now announced 2 emergency cemeteries in Guayaquil to cope with demand. Despite an early lockdown in February, videos by desperate families show a city in chaos.
Hemos tomado la decisión de enterrarlo.
Corpses kept in houses, on the street, some even abandoned.
Hay que decir la verdad. Sabemos que, tanto en números de contagios como de fallecimientos, los registros oficiales se quedan cortos.
The president's admission did little to calm the anger here.
Necesitamos la ayuda internacional para que la gente no siga muriéndose.
And as the frustration boils over, inside, the medics are facing an existential crisis. 7 nurses have already died and 147 are infected. Over 100 more resigned due to lack of protective gear and support.
Antes hice un periodo de apnea que tuve que ir a emergencia para que me pongan oxígeno. ¿Qué están esperando? ¿Que yo me muera?
Petita's husband, Orlando, was sent home from the same hospital after doctors said they had no way to treat him. After he died, his body lay in the living room for 4 days before they could bury him.
Porque es algo que usted nunca espera, porque nos tocó hasta incluso dormir afuera. Ahí dormimos en unas sillas ahí porque el olor era insoportable, no se podía entrar.
Despite the lockdown, authorities say as many as 3,500 people may still die from COVID-19 in this part of Ecuador alone. With vast levels of inequality and little investment in public health, Latin America is ill-equipped to cope with the coronavirus crisis. The fear in this region now is that Guayaquil may only be the beginning.
Still live on the Pulse with me, Daniel Dadzie. When we come back, Becky from our Showbiz desk joins us, and Spiky will also join us. The GH COVID-19 Tracker is an app that is going to be launched in just a few minutes at the Ministry of Communications, but it's going to be launched with a virtual concert featuring Shatta Wale and Kwame Eugene. You don't want to miss this one. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. This is The Pulse. My name is Daniel Dadzie. Like I said earlier, we've been joined by Becky from the Showbiz desk and Spiky, who does all things technology here at Joy. Becky, how are we?
Fine, thank you, Daniel. How are you?
I'm good. But let me start this one off by speaking to Spiky, who's joining us via Skype. Good afternoon, Spiky. Now, here's a question. The COVID-19 Tracker, what is it?
So it's an app that basically was built to give people information based on the kind of data that you've collected from them. So it's supposed to give you recommendations on if you seem to have come into contact with someone who has had.
Right. We'll try and reestablish our connection with Spiky in just a few minutes so we understand fully what exactly is going to happen. But, okay, we understand we have that connection with him again. So, Spiky, I think we lost almost everything you said. Can you go back and explain to us what this app does?
Based on data that has collected. So, it's going to collect age, your sex, your travel, or pre-existing medical condition. And if you come into contact with someone who's been tested positive of COVID-19.
How is it going to gather this information?
People have to submit. It's going to ask you to input that data. So when you install the app, it will ask for your phone number and your email address. When it does get that, it's going to ask you some questions, and then you input that data. And after you input that data, it makes these recommendations.
Great. Spiky, hold on to that thought for me. I want to come back to the studio and talk about the launch itself a bit with Becky, who is with us here in studio. Becky, exciting times, isn't it?
Very exciting times.
We thought that a lockdown would mean we won't be getting such a concert and musical experiences, but today we have a virtual concert.
Yeah, the ministry is making that possible. The Ministry of Communication is making that possible. They just don't want to launch an app, but they want you, because today is Easter Monday. You would love to have fun and do all the things that you wanted to do on a regular Easter Monday, but they're bringing, musicians from across, Ghana, and to just, have fun, just, make sure that you have the time of your life. I know that we have gospel musicians too in there. Yeah, we have gospel musician Dinah Samoa, who is supposed to represent, the gospel fraternity. We have Kwame Eugene, of course, and we also have Ed Woji all the way from the Volta region. Fancy Gadam is also on that particular list. Great Ampon is also on that list. Kachwe, Kwame Apia, Dada KD, and also the last performance from dancehall artist Shatta Wale. So we're expecting, Daniel, I am expecting something different myself. I'm really not sure what will happen.
This is not new from Shatta Wale. He had a virtual
concert before. Edem had, Manifest did. So I'm also looking forward to it, really.
Interesting. Now, Spiky, back to you now. This app is going to be a groundbreaker when it comes to our work against, fight against COVID-19. I see the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, is on the bill to actually launch it. How key do you think this, what role do you think this is going to play in this fight against COVID? So basically, one of the things that we're trying to use technology to solve is contact tracing. And earlier today, we spoke on JNI about how even Apple and Google are coming together to help, fix this problem, contact tracing, because we're human and we tend to forget. We tend to forget where we've been, who we've been in contact with. And I, for one, I started logging everywhere where I was going. So if I was going to work, I would log. If I came into contact with anyone, actually log all these things because I wanted to keep track of all the people I was coming into contact with. If any of them came up as positive, I came up as positive and had contact rate be easy. So I think an app like this would be good for people to input their data and help the authorities track and stop the spread, because the best way to stop the spread of COVID, since we don't have a cure yet, is by preventing social contact or preventing people from coming, positive people coming into contact with negative people. Right. Now, Spiky, here's my question. I have followed conversations around the Ghana Post GPS app. This is also an app that was heavily dependent on how many people download it and how many people submit information to it. Is the COVID-19 tracker going to be like this? Is it going to be totally dependent on how many people download it and submit information to it? Indeed. Every app that is launched or used for purposes like this requires people to submit data. If people don't submit data, the app will pretty much not work. The same as what Google and Apple are working on. People not opt in to submit their data. It's not going to work. Right, but does it not mean then, Spiky, that if we don't get enough people to download the app, we may not get the impact we want from it? We could also have a different approach where, say, if the app works, or health workers could actually also use that to input people's data. So let's say you come to the hospital, you're showing incentive. The health workers could be incentivized to tell people that, hey, listen, and as much as we're trying to help you, you can also help us help you by entering your data into the app. Interesting, that part of health workers. Yeah, interesting, that part of health workers also updating it with information. That could form a database for them as well. A great one there. Now, let's get back to, okay, so Becky, we're telling us that there'll be a praise and worship session with Evangelist Diana Asamoah. She's starting the whole thing. Well, she's actually in our background right now. So it's like the spirit is moving. Yeah, you start with a prayer, you start with God, everything you start with God. So here's Evangelist Diana Asamoah giving us the prayer.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, hallelujah. Yan sudden we radim. Onyaye makolona valos unkunye dawate. Mensro.
Wakanda Bamu
Sandy Bobby said, "Oh, my God, I'm what can I Oh, Jesus. Oh, all the time, you say, I called you. What to become? Yay! Running on, now all the time, you say, I called you.
You're live on the Pulse here on your Joy News channel. My name is Daniel Dazi, but this is where we bring the program to an end. Thank you very much for joining us. We will take you straight back to that virtual concert being held by the Ministry of Communications, which will see the outdooring of the COVID-19 tracker. Beautiful piece of technology that is going to change the face of the fight against this virus here in Ghana. Kobe Spike Nkrumah will be on standby. My colleague Aisha Ibrahim will also be on standby. But that's it from me. See you next time. Have a good day.